Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and this video is going to be more of an informational video, kind of an announcement for a new project, as if I need to add another one to my big long list of all the authors I'm trying to go through. It's actually part of the Harlan Ellison project, but uh, the reason I decided to do this is because Harlan Ellison's groundbreaking anthology, Dangerous Visions, was reprinted in, I believe, March in this edition. Now, Dangerous Visions was originally published in 1967, and in his foreword, Ellison states his purpose of trying to start a revolution. And he did. It's often described as the book that started the new wave here in the United States. And it probably did inspire a lot of people towards that kind of thinking, but it isn't actually an anthology of what was going on at the time. It's not an anthology of just new wave writing at the time, because what Ellison wanted to do is he wanted to go to authors both old and new and invite them to write stories for this anthology, invite them to write the stories that they were never allowed to write because the magazines were too conservative, too um, too much against any kind of liberal politics, too much against any kind of sex, too much against any kind of questioning of religion. Those subjects were all taboo in the science fiction magazines and largely in the books as well that were being published at that time. And Ellison wanted to upset that, and he wanted to do an anthology where he would tell the authors to write the story they really wanted to write but couldn't write because of the market. And they did, and a lot of older authors contributed to Dangerous Visions. The very first story in this book is by Lester Del Rey, titled Evensong. And Del Rey's career dated all the way back to 1938. So he was part of Campbell's golden age, and he was a noted editor as well. So he was very much a part of the science fiction establishment, and he wrote a story that he couldn't publish anywhere else. And you also had other older authors like Robert Silverberg and Frederick Pohl, Philip A. Farmer, Robert Bloch. He dated back to the 1930s also. Fritz Leiber is in here. Poul Anderson is in here. Carol Emshwiller, of course. Damon Knight, Theodore Sturgeon. And of course, newer authors like J.G. Ballard, John Brunner, Keith Laumer, Norman Spinrad, Roger Zelazny, Samuel Delaney. So you have a book that's a very good cross section of all the authors, not just new authors, not just young authors, not just people trying to do experimental stuff, but also older authors that were part of the science fiction fantasy establishment at that time. And they were coming out and writing the kinds of stories that Ellison was looking for. And to a large degree, Ellison achieved what he wanted. He didn't totally change the entire genre. A lot of the established authors continued to do their traditional kind of science fiction. And to this day, we still have the traditional Campbellian hard science fiction being done. Um, he didn't completely change everything, but he did make a big splash, and the anthology became very famous. Now, I had a Signet paperback of Dangerous Visions when I was young. It's the one with it's got a red orange color on the cover, and I think an illustration, I believe, is by Leo and Diane Dillon. Someone correct me if I'm mistaken about that. That was what I had, and I currently, well, I bought the brand new edition, but I also have a copy of the first edition, not first printing. Mine's actually a science fiction book club edition, but it's the original cover art with the eyeball. Very cool. That's part of my collection. But I wanted to I wanted to get this because I didn't have Again Dangerous Visions, which I now have, and I've never read this one. I've read the original Dangerous Visions. I've never read Again Dangerous Visions. And of course, this fall there will be the publication of the last Dangerous Visions, finally compiled by the executor of Ellison's estate, J. Michael Straczynski. I hope I pronounced that right. And I've got that on pre-order. I have to get that and read it. And so I'm really chomping at the bit to dig in and read these. Despite all the other things I'm reading, I really want to get going on reading these, because I love the original Dangerous Visions and really want to reread it because it's been more than 40 years since I read it. I've never read Again Dangerous Visions, and I have a copy sitting here right now. And I definitely want to read the last Dangerous Visions when it comes out. This is a major publishing event, and I really wanted to get all three with the new covers consistent for my collection. And I want to go through them and talk about all the stories, of course, starting with Dangerous Visions. Now, the first thing I did before diving into this is I contacted Emily and said, "Do you want to join me with this? I'll get you a copy." She said, "Sure, I'll try it." I don't know if she'll stick with me through all three volumes or how quickly we'll be able to do it if we do it together. Because she's a slower reader, has a lot less time, and we do have other things to do for Telltale. But she said she'd try, so I bought her Dangerous Visions. We'll see how it goes with that volume, whether or not she continues into the other two volumes with me. But she's going to at least start Dangerous Visions with me, and I've already gone ahead and read and indicated to her to go ahead and read the first short story in Dangerous Visions, which is that Lester Del Rey story, Evensong. It's a 3-page story. So I said, I think you can fit that in with all the other videos. We're going to shoot videos this is a Sunday, June 16th, I believe, and we're going to shoot videos on June 19th, Wednesday. And so we'll be shooting our first Dangerous Visions video that night, and I'll probably get it up late June, early July. And we're going to embark on this journey through the Dangerous Visions. I hope she enjoys it. I know I'll enjoy it. I hope you'll enjoy it too, and I hope you'll join me. And by the way, we're going to go, usually we stay pretty shallow, especially on short stories, because we don't want to spoil things. But I think with these, we're going to dig in and really discuss the topics, really discuss the issues, really get into what makes each story so dangerous. Some of them, I'm anticipating that today some of the stories in these books are not going to be all that dangerous anymore. But that's what we'll see, and that's what we'll talk about. how things have changed? Have some things stayed the same? Are some of these stories truly dangerous? Who would consider them to be dangerous? How do they fit against the political climate of today? In 1967, in the arts, you had very strong um, liberal movement wanting to break free of the constrictions of any kind of censorship in the arts, with movies, with fiction, with paintings, everything. All the arts wanted to be free to express however they saw fit. But they were in a world that was very conservative. All the established systems, the government, the military, the corporations, they were all very conservative, and laws existed to support their more conservative viewpoints. So they had a fight on their hands, which is why authors couldn't just publish these stories. It took Harlan Ellison and Doubleday to have the vision to put these books out. So are they still dangerous? Have we come a long way? Are we kind of regressing politically right now with the strong right-wing movement? Or is the right-wing movement of today a little more open to some of what's in this book? Those are the kinds of questions we'll be discussing, as well as how these stories changed science fiction from what it was before Dangerous Visions. And you got to remember also the new wave movement in science fiction in Britain had already gotten underway. Um, my feeling is that you already had the beginnings of it in the late 1950s with authors like Brian Aldiss and Michael Moorcock, and especially when Moorcock took over editorship of New Worlds, his vision for the magazine there, which happened, I believe, in 1965, his vision for the magazine created the British new wave. So that was at least 2 years before Dangerous Visions came out. Britain was already doing it. So, and some of the writers in here, like John Brunner, they're British, and Ballard is in there. They were already going before 1967. And Ballard, of course, dates back into the 1950s. He is kind of pre-new wave, but his works are very definitely new wave, including his early works, which, were formative, but definitely he was stirring things up back in the 1950s already, writing stories that were unlike anything anybody else was writing. So I think Ballard was definitely a precursor. I also think Aldous, with some of his novels, some people may argue with me about this, but I think Starship and Cryptozoic are both very definitely moving away from what was going on in the 1950s in science fiction. He was definitely writing something new there. And even Moorcock, he was starting his style in the early 1960s. So these people were already going in Britain in the early 1960s, well before Dangerous Visions came out. You could also argue that authors like Le Guin and Delaney, they were already publishing in the early 1960s, but were they already experimenting in the early 1960s? Maybe, maybe not. So, but definitely Ellison was. Ellison was doing some very cool stuff, even in the late 1950s. So he was getting the new wave going much earlier than Dangerous Visions. Not sure about Silverberg yet. I'm still going through his early work. So Emily and I are going to explore all this and dive into the phenomenon that is Dangerous Visions, again Dangerous Visions, and when it comes out, the last Dangerous Visions, and report story by story, talking about them more in depth than what we normally do. So be prepared for spoilers. We'll try to confine it to the toward the end of the video after most people have already dropped off. Um, so if you want to be part of that discussion, you need to keep watching through the video to get to the real meat of the philosophy here. I expect this will be a great series. And like I say, those of you who've been asking for Emily to be in more videos, she's going to be in these, at least to begin with. Whether or not she sticks with it is going to depend on how much she likes what she's reading. So we'll see. But I'm going to stick with it through all 3 volumes. This is a major publishing event, and it would just be wrong for me not to cover this, especially where I am going through all of Harlan Ellison. I'm putting this a little earlier in Harlan. I haven't gotten through Harlan Ellison's fiction up to 1967. I think I'm still at the end of 1956. But that's okay, as I said before. The world won't end. I'm just going to move this one up to coincide with the publication of these books. It'll be a little out of order, but someday nobody will even notice. I hope you'll join us for this whole series. I'm going to try to make these the best discussions that we have done to date, and try to keep them lively and try to keep them interesting. So, one other little bit of housekeeping for those of you who have stuck with me this long. I want to point out that what we do is we talk about literature. Telltale Books is not really an audiobook channel. I've run into people leaving comments. They were disappointed because they were expecting an audiobook. And I said, well, we don't do audiobooks of copyrighted material because we don't own the copyrights and we don't want to get in trouble. I know there's a lot of people on YouTube that are doing this. Maybe they got permission, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But I don't have permission to use anybody's copyrighted material and do public readings. So we can't do it. We can do some public domain stuff, which is what Emily has been doing with some poetry readings. I just recently put up the first of those, and hopefully I can get her to keep doing more of those. I think she does an excellent job at reading. I think we just need to make it a little more interesting on the editing side, visual side. And I think that'll be a great series too, but that'll be the exception. Ordinarily, we do not read stories. We do not do audiobooks. The stories are out there. Much of the science fiction that I've been going over, you can find in free PDFs of the original magazine appearances. Some of them are even in Project Gutenberg. So you can read it. Go and read it. Look it up. Look it up. Download the PDF, open it up, and read the story. And read the rest of the stories too. It's worth it, I think. Some of them, anyway. Go read it for yourself. Experience it for yourself through your own mind, your own voice. Imagine your own voice with all the characters and stuff. And that way you formulate the vision of the story yourself, the way you want it to be, not the way I'm feeding it to you. So read. Go read. Don't wait for us to do audiobooks. Go and read yourself. And, I simply won't ever knowingly violate anybody's copyright. Some of the artwork I've been putting up online might be a little bit questionable, but it's coming from a PDF that I found for free on archive.org. So I'm assuming it's okay. I'm assuming it's all right for me to use that artwork if it's out there. If it's not, somebody should get it pulled from archive.org. We will not knowingly use copyrighted material without securing permission. And at this point, we don't have money to buy rights. We don't have any money to buy rights. So, hey, to help us in that cause, go to our Etsy store, go to our Pango bookstore, buy books. It gives us a little bit of money. And that'll put us on the road towards that day when maybe we can do stuff like that or publish the books that we want to publish. Till then, come back and join us for all of our discussions about a wide variety of literature. Lots of science fiction, lots of horror, doing lots of Stephen King right now. Going to be doing some fantasy. We're going to be doing regular literature. That's what we love, and that's what we want to talk about. And it's going to be discussions talking about the stories. Hopefully, with the aim of helping you decide if it's worth your time to look it up and read it. Or maybe based on our advice, you'll go, it doesn't really sound like it's for me, even though they thought it was really great. I've had that happen already, and that's a good thing. That's why we're doing these videos, is to try and help you on your journey through reading, help you to chart your path to the stuff that you will love. So, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, come on back and watch all of our Dangerous Visions videos and everything else that we've been doing.